After the release of Denis Villeneuve's Dune, the director has added another fantastic entry to his growing filmography. But where does the film rank in comparison to all the others? In this video, I'm going to be giving you my own ranking of the director's films, alongside sharing my thoughts on why I would position it at the spot it currently sits at. Of course, this is just my opinion towards it, so don't forget to let me know in the comments how you would personally rank his films. But before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content on Denis Villeneuve and Dune 2021, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, here is my current ranking of Denis Villeneuve's films from worst to best. At number 10 is Villeneuve's second feature, Maelstrom. This film is a guilt-laden romantic fable about a subject that its writer-director has explored many times since. He explores the effects of cynical violence and how it can be stopped. It tells the story of a beautiful Montreal woman who fatally runs over a Norwegian fishmonger, survives a subsequent suicide attempt, and then falls in love with her victim's son. Narrated by a talking fish while it's being butchered, the non-linear narrative might needlessly loop itself into knots, but no amount of trickery can disguise the fact that this is ultimately a simple tale about choosing light over darkness. This is Villeneuve's least confident effort and his least compelling as a result, but he would soon come to believe in his filmmaking as much as he does in the ideas that change it. At the next spot, I'm putting August 32nd on Earth. In this movie, a realization hits everyone at once, being that in life, where the calendar inevitably flips over and each of us will only be here for so long, it happens to us all at different times. It takes a while to figure out what this love story is trying to say, but Villeneuve's directorial debut eventually coheres as a movie about that moment when you first begin to realize that you're not going to live forever. It takes way too long to get going, but the chemistry between its leads helps things along, and more than anything, it's the incredible economy of Villeneuve's images that keeps things together, with his shots becoming tighter and more expressive as the story falls apart. Still, there are some blueprints here which Villeneuve would work on in his process to becoming one of the best directors working today. Coming in at number 8 is Polytechnique. Villeneuve took a long hiatus between his second and third features, but he returned with a profoundly upsetting film that bears all the hallmarks of his more recent projects. This heart-stopping dramatization of the 1989 Polytechnique massacre doesn't pursue a feeling of helplessness, but it has a very clear and very familiar point to make. Empathy is the only answer to anger. This is a film that defies easy criticism, but feels a little bit more urgent every time the world resorts to violence. The murderer made it explicitly clear that his killings were motivated by misogyny, and the filmmaker saw no reason to complicate that. He uses this grim premise as an opportunity to forge the hyper-experimental style that has since come to define his work, using sound design, droning music, and long takes to grab you. Over time, Villeneuve's lack of subtlety would become more immediately impactful, but is clearly not lost on a filmmaker who's always understood the power of words. At number 7 is Incendies. For many people, this was their first encounter with the auteur director, and the haunting prologue was enough to guarantee that they would remember his name. Adapted from a 4-hour play of the same name, Encendies takes Villeneuve's usual obsessions and stretches them out to their widest possible dimensions. The whole project provides a quality if you read it as a parable about forgiveness and the capacity to find love in a hopeless place. Villeneuve is filled with awe by the strength he finds in women. He tends to express their perseverance through suffering. But whether you find Encendies to be manipulative or grippingly mythic, Villeneuve deserves credit for being one of the only contemporary filmmakers who can blur the line between the two and challenge you that way. At the number 6 spot is 2013's Enemy. This is the weirdest film the director has ever made, and also one of the most personal. Boldly adapted from Jose Saramago's The Double, sex, car crashes, and the scariest penultimate shot in movie history take place. At heart, Enemy is a story of self-destruction, a nightmare about how hurting people we love can split us in two. For once, Villeneuve made a movie that isn't as simple as it is titled. During his early career, he struggled to disentangle action from its meaning, but only through making a film about failure was he able to pull that off. His earlier movies focused on ideals, while his most interesting ones hone in on the obstacles that prevent us from living up to them. Enemy is so unnerving because it redirects Villeneuve's social concerns back towards the individual subconscious. In its own poisoned way, it asks how we can shape the world when we can't even control ourselves. A fantastic film that combines meaning with story perfectly, while all at the same time throwing us into the paradox that would become the shape of Denis Villeneuve's re-established career. At the halfway point, I'm placing Sicario. Denis Villeneuve has never been afraid of the dark or confronting how it feels to be frightened of the future. His first 2 movies were about characters who had to be convinced to choose life, and his third was about one who stared death in the face and still managed to find a way to move forward. To that point, Sicario isn't really a movie about the nuances of the drug trade. On the contrary, Villeneuve sees the border as little more than a backdrop for some of the world's violence, as the kind of place that makes you lose hope for all humanity. Sicario is a simple film that asks a simple question: can you fight a monster without becoming a monster yourself? It's a film about morality that is conjured through visceral and paralysing sequences. Johan Johansson's effective score has to be mentioned too, for his outstanding work alongside Villeneuve and Roger Deakins, who bring us a film that is urgent and eternal from all this ugliness. It's hard to not watch the border scene and think to yourself, this is what quality cinema looks like. Coming in at number 4 is the director's 2016 film, Arrival. This is, of course, a story about breaking a cycle of violence. It's a cycle that is on a cosmic scale and meaningfully diluted for the people living in the present because the consequences of their actions won't be felt until long after they're dead. It hones in on the human details with a specificity that we have never seen before. It doesn't merely pull at the chains of hatred or outline a way to break them, it subliminates the solution into pure emotion until we can feel the truth for ourselves. Anchored by a fantastic performance by Amy Adams, alongside a brilliant Max Richter composition, Arrival targets our fear of the other and uses language to articulate the reasons for our misunderstandings. But the film's full power only comes together once you recognise that its ending is a rather beautiful moment of personal choice for someone who might not seem to have one. Denis Villeneuve handles it with such incredible grace that he definitely earned his chance to make a sequel to the original Blade Runner. And in the top 3 is the director's latest film, Dune. The sci-fi epic follows the ascendance of Paul Atreides in assuming a position of leadership over a divided, dangerous galaxy. It's hard not to see the meta parallels to Villeneuve's own rise, a signal to create higher quality blockbuster fare and ones that do their utmost to transport you as science fiction should. Dune marks a coronation of sorts for the filmmaker, a synergy of his unmatched eye for awe-aspiring visuals, with his quiet ruminations about individuals coming to understand their places in the world, and dispels any doubt that Villeneuve deserves to be the latest filmmaker to become a household name. Dune is a big-budget spectacle done right, and world-building as it should be. Even if it is only half of the novel, the director still intends to finish adapting the second part of Frank Herbert's classic, and this film feels entirely sufficient and satisfying as a free-standing enterprise. Villeneuve assembles a universe beyond the audience's eye, not for his corporate overlords, but for the boundless capacity of the human imagination. He does so through amazing performances, a production that makes the film feel like it was shot on a completely different planet, cinematography that inspires you, music that drives you to its core, and writing that does the material and the sci-fi filmmaking landscape the justice it deserves. He restores a sense of wonder and majesty to the genre. Dune earns its directorial focus for a fantastic adaptation that comes nothing short of being titled a modern masterpiece. Just missing out on the top spot is Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049. The sequel to Ridley Scott's iconic science fiction film tells a brilliant story that more thoroughly excavates the essence of what it means to be alive than almost any other Hollywood film in recent memory. Despite the fact that it's the first Denis Villeneuve film to take place in the future, it's also the first to look inward rather than backward or forward. As a result, it's the first Denis Villeneuve movie that digs deep enough to wrap its hands around the roots of its existential concerns. On paper, making a sequel to a film as acclaimed and beloved as Ridley Scott's Blade Runner sounds like a daunting task. One of the many joys of Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049 is how easy it makes that sizable feat seem and how entrancing it proves. This is the movie that not only androids have dreamed of, but science fiction fans as well. Harrison Ford returns at his moody best, and a calm-faced Ryan Gosling couldn't suit this dystopian world better. And while the film's narrative ticks every box it needs to, this is a work that demands the utmost attention to every Roger Deakins frame, as well as to every scored note by Benjamin Wallfisch and Hans Zimmer. Through beautiful panning shots of neon-lit urban jungles and dust-covered landscapes, Villeneuve constantly blurs the distinction between what is real and what isn't. We end up relating to the android more than any other human in the movie, as he exemplifies the emptiness of modern life. And at the number 1 spot on my list is Prisoners. Denis Villeneuve transcends the common narrative of a forensics crime drama by transforming the story into a sensationally effective thriller focusing on people's morality when they are placed in challenging situations. Set in rural Pennsylvania, Prisoners follows the story of 2 abducted girls and the subsequent search for the abductor by the police. Unable to apprehend and detain the suspect, the families, particularly the father of one of the daughters, decides to take the case into their own hands as time begins to run out. How far is someone willing to go to find their child? Will they resort to torture? Hugh Jackman's Keller Dover is a prime example of a desperate and hurting father struggling to maintain his moral compass, bridging on themes of violence with the psychological and emotional consequences. The film brings to question, does resorting to torture and brutality get us the information we want, or does it even elicit anything of value? In the end, everyone is a prisoner of something. whether that something be time, grief, one's own psyche, or an actual prison. In addition to the excellent screenplay, casting in this film is top-notch with Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Paul Dano, Viola Davis, and David Dastmalchian, all deserving recognition for their roles in this movie. With a phenomenal cast, amazing cinematography, and a well-crafted screenplay, Prisoners is truly a suspenseful film with a chilling conclusion, and to this day, it's one of my favourite films of all time. But that was my video ranking the films of Denis Villeneuve, including Dune. Like I said, this is just my personal opinion towards how I would place the director's films, but I'm very interested to see how you guys would rank them now that Dune is finally out. Let me know your list down below in the comment section, alongside your thoughts on the ranking I have shared in this video. For more breakdown videos on Denis Villeneuve and his latest film Dune, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.